Once again, folks, another flight, another trip, and another group opportunity to welcome you all to our annual Marketing Outlook meeting. So on behalf of our staff, welcome to Destination DC's 2015 annual marketing meeting. Now, I'm sure you noticed we're doing things a little bit differently this year. We normally start off early in the morning, and the restaurateurs are all dragging in because they get in late at night, and they're like, why do you do something at 8 o'clock in the morning? So this year we decided to do something a little differently. As you sat down, you had a chance to eat and engage with other folks that are in the room, and now you'll have a chance to listen and learn a little bit more about what we're doing for 2015. Now, of course, we've been doing the Marketing Outlook meeting for a few years, and this is the very first year we've done it in the new Marriott Marquis, and we're happy to be here because clearly this hotel means a lot to us in terms of bringing new business to this city. Yes, thank you. I purposely put people in the front that will clap and get you guys engaged, so thank you for that. We're really enjoying all the great things that are happening in 2014, and we love to look back to what we've been doing over the last few years, but it's equally important for us to look at the future. But before we do that, we want to share with you some of the important things that happened in 2014 through the magic of video.
Working with the Washington, D.C. Convention and Sales and Service team has been an amazing experience. Our event is about partners, and this truly shows a strong partnership.
Destination DC has been an important part of the process of getting this hotel built. They were there from the beginning to educate all of our stakeholders on the importance of having a world-class hotel to complement our world-class convention center. They were there for us then, they're still here for us now, and we're absolutely delighted to continue to be a partner with them.
At Washington Hilton and Capitol Hilton, the Destination DC campaign, DC Cool, has been an exciting platform for our teams to share this past year with meeting planners who are looking for an exciting, vibrant destination to bring their conference to.
All of us here at the museum, from social networking to marketing to PR, we're all very, very grateful to be able to work with Destination DC and helping us drive more visitors here to the museum.
This past year, we were able to secure two great, prestigious basketball tournaments to come to the nation's capital, the ACC in 2016 and the Big Ten in 2017. They're great events for the building, they're great events for the city, and they wouldn't be possible without the help and support of Destination DC to bring these events to the town.
City Tap House has been open since December, and it's really been a fantastic whirlwind, largely due in part to our friendship with Destination DC and the Convention Center. It's certainly a symbiotic relationship that we don't take lightly, and we certainly are representing ourselves as well as the entire area.
So there's really no possible way that I could have told you all that information. So we figured that we'd put it in a video and share it with you because it's extremely important so that you can see exactly what happened in years past, in the last few months. All of this information, all the data, all of the videos that you'll be seeing remain on our extranet. All of you are members of Destination DC, and hopefully you all have access to our extranet. And if you don't, you know where to get that information from members of our team at member.washington.org. If you don't have it, just see one of us afterwards because we want to make sure you have access to what happened in 2014. Be it new restaurants that have opened, and I see Kathy Hollinger here with the Restaurant Association representing the 2,000 plus restaurants in the city. Business in the Convention Center with Greg Odell and his phenomenal team that's here as well. And of course, the Hotel Association with Solomon and his team. We work together to bring new customers to the city and to make sure that all of you all are engaged and have a chance to take a piece of the pie as we work to bring business to the city. Now, in that video, you also heard from a couple of key customers like Microsoft. Booking Microsoft in July of 2014, a big deal for Washington. We know July, yes, there you go, thank you. And it's always fun to talk to elected officials and others as to what the process is of booking business. And it's not like Microsoft says, I want to go to Washington. They want to come to Washington, but they also look at other cities, and it's a huge process to get that business. And the fact that we did such a great job, and we, I mean the restaurants, the hotels, the service providers, they said they have a phenomenal convention here in Washington this year, and they've already confirmed us for 2017. So we're happy that Katie was in that video. Now, what we're also focusing on is all of the things in which we can capitalize as DC continues to evolve. The billions of dollars in new development, infrastructure, new sites, new attractions, new shopping, new dining, streetcar, and all those things are important to us as we continue to focus on bringing new business to Washington. And about DC Cool. You know, this is something that, you know, a lot of people have asked me, especially reporters, is it cool to call yourself cool? And we all know the answer to that. The answer is really no. Someone else should say it about you. And the reality is that people that come to Washington that have not been here for a long period of time have said that exact same thing about our city. When they come to Washington, they have different expectations as to what they'll see. And when they leave, they say, we had no idea DC was so cool. And as a matter of fact, I was being interviewed by a journalist not too long ago about the DC Cool campaign. And of course, journalists love to promote the good things that are happening because that's what they do. But they want to trip us up from time to time, and they ask me that question. Is it okay to call yourself cool? I'm like, well, I'm not calling myself cool. I know that I represent a cool destination. And then I started asking her questions. Like, where are you from? She moved here from New York City a few years ago. I'm like, oh, okay. So what do you think about D.C.? She says, well, D.C. is a really cool destination. Gotcha. So she said it herself, and she wrote an article about D.C. Cool and the fact that, as you all know, D.C. was just voted as the #1 coolest city in America by Forbes magazine, which is really important to us. Now, as we take advantage of those opportunities, the other question was, how did you get Forbes to do that? And the goal for us is to actually not get Forbes to do it, to get them to come in and do their own research and find out on their own exactly what are the criteria for a cool city. And we happen to be that cool city, and just a big coincidence that our campaign happens to be, just making sure you're awake, DC Cool, which is really important. And with that, we're going to continue to capitalize on DC Cool in 2015 and beyond. For us, it's all about being ready for the world. It's about focusing on bringing more people to Washington as a destination and focusing on all the new outlets and opportunities in which shoppers and diners and things of those such they can do when they're coming into the city. Now, you've heard us talk about international business before, and as we focus on international business and conventions, international business remains important to us for a couple of reasons. One, they make up 1/10 of the visitation to Washington, D.C., but they make up nearly 30% of the overall visitor spend. So when you think about that, and what I tell people all the time, we're cheerleaders for the city, but it's economic development. We want people that'll come in, stay longer, and spend more. So international is a big opportunity for us. And we partner with folks like the Airports Authority, because they, of course, own 2 of the major airports in the area, and they're focusing on new airlines coming into Washington, D.C. And we find ways to go after markets that are really important to us, international consumers and others that are looking at finding new ways in which they can enjoy the United States as a destination. So our goal moving forward is to continue to focus on the domestic market because it's important, to continue to focus on international and domestic conventions, but also to focus on ways in which we can take DC Cool to a new level, to get other people to see exactly what we know about our destination. Because when people, before they come here, it's always, we want to come to Washington, D.C., we'll be there for maybe a day or maybe for a day trip. We'll take a picture in front of the White House, we'll take a picture in front of the Capitol building, we'll do the one Smithsonian, and then we'll leave. So we got a lot of homework to do to engage people and make sure they know exactly what there is to see and do in Washington, D.C. And a large part of what we're going to be doing is through our website, washington.org, which all of you know, and through a variety of videos that really showcase the traveler's experience when they're coming to Washington. And we're happy to share with you something that we're focusing on right now in terms of the global experience and how we're going to kind of tie it all in. So take a look at what we're doing now. So what we're doing is, as you can imagine, if people don't come to Washington, we want to take snippets of Washington to them. So just imagine in that particular piece, it showcased this guy that looked like George Michael. He's coming into Washington, D.C., and his experience of Washington is just what you saw on the video. And then he leaves Washington, and another person comes to the city, and perhaps they're doing more sporting events or more shopping or more nightlife. So you'll see more and more of that as we move on with the way in which we market our destination, which is important to us. You know, our city is filled with only in D.C. types of events and attractions. The National Cherry Blossom Festival, of course, is always the way we start off our season in terms of inviting people to the city and welcoming guests. Of course, Passport DC in the month of May is extremely important to us, and one of those things that every time we tell people about Passport DC, and I know Steve Schulman's in the audience, they're always amazed at the fact that this is something that you can do in Washington, D.C., and it will assist us in bringing more visitors to the city. And of course, the 17 Smithsonians that we have, 17, not one, and making sure that the world knows that there's 17 free attractions, as well as all the other museums and all the other activities that we have in the city. The National Mall, which is extremely important to us. I love when one day I was walking down 7th Street and there was a family walking down the street with me, and the guy said, "Hey, we're going to the mall." And he had these 3 little girls with him, and when he told them that the mall was a grassy area with monuments, they were like, "We thought we were going shopping." So whether at that mall or the National Mall, it's all important to us, and we focus on it, plus the fact that we have 170-plus embassies, so we're a really cosmopolitan city. These are the things that are important to us as we continue to focus on promoting the city. We focus on things that people know and love, like our monuments, memorials, and museums, but we also focus on those experiences that perhaps people don't know about Washington as a destination. So theater, arts, and culture remain a huge part of Destination DC's DC Cool campaign in 2015. Dining, the 2,000-plus restaurants that are in the city and all the other attractions that come with the dining scene. So many new restaurants opening all over the city. Nightlife, you know, we're not known as a city to come and party at night, and we had a group that was in town last night, and I had breakfast with them at 7:30 this morning, and they found a way to party in Washington, and we need to get that word out that there's great nightlife in the city. Sports, of course, plays a huge role in terms of the experience of coming to Washington, be it going to a baseball game or going watching volleyball in the city or just playing sports on the National Mall. We're going to play a huge role in going after more events with Events DC and team. Outdoor activities, the green space that we have. Someone mentioned to us, they were talking about a really, really large city north of Washington, D.C. I won't call the name of the city, but everyone knows it, and I love it too. And they said, you know, the difference between that place and your place is that you guys are clean and green. And I like that. I like that kind of ties into DC Cool, that we're clean and green, plus affordable and all the other things. And of course, the fact that we have more shopping and opportunities for people to do things when they're coming to the city, because we know a large part of the global community, when they travel, they're looking at ways to enjoy a destination, but then they go shopping in the last couple days that they're here and they leave our city. Of course, architecture, neighborhoods, and the international feel of Washington is what we're going to continue to focus on with our campaign. And being ready for the world is what it's all about for us and our team, and we want you all to be engaged as well. So we're focusing on some of the major events that are happening in 2015, including the 150th anniversary of the end of the Civil War, which is really important, and of course the assassination of President Lincoln, the 150th, which is in 2015. And then in 2016, that's an election year for us. We know that that means automatic business in January. I won't get calls from general managers saying, what are you doing to bring business to the city? Because it's already coming, which is good for us, as well as the opening of new venues and new museums in the city, which are extremely important to us. So we're going to focus on all of those things as a part of DC Cool 2015. And 2016, of course, remains a big year for us because of the presidential campaign. But then also, in 2017, you know that we have a chance to host the world with IPW, which we'll be talking about a little bit later. All these things are a big deal for Washington and for Destination DC because it's important that we leverage these things to bring more people to the city. The key words for us, heads and beds, butts and seats. We get it. It resonates in all scenarios of all of you that are here, and we're working on bringing people to the city. So a lot of the programming that you're going to see in 2014, everything that you see in terms of what we're focusing on will be associated with DC Cool. And we can't do it without you all being engaged. So you're going to be hearing from us. I love when people say, oh, I know your name because we get your emails. The next question is, do you read them? And most of them say they do. Maybe they're just being nice. But it's good to know that they're getting the information, and hopefully it's resonating with them. So for us, we want DC Cool to be our campaign, but we want you all to use it as well. I was in the breakfast this morning, I mentioned it earlier, and Dan Nadeau, the GM here, was in the breakfast with us, and as the hotel was opening, we were talking about how cool the architecture is, and he used the word to address the group. And that just made me smile because that means the locals are understanding and making DC Cool their own, which is extremely important to us. Now, with marketing and communications, we're going to continue to focus on ways to make a larger economic impact as we bring business to the city. We're going to leverage the $3 million that we receive from the Wilson Building to continue to focus on marketing DC. And we received that for the last couple years. We're receiving an additional $1 million in 2015 for a total of $4 million towards marketing DC as a destination, which is extremely important, as well as the fact that in the near future, we're going to probably receive additional funding for us to go after additional marketing opportunities in the city. And all of that is because our elected officials understand the importance of what we're doing to bring more business to the city. So you'll see more advertising, more out-of-market promotions, more international marketing, and more convention and sales initiatives that are important to us. Now, here's what you may not know. As we continue to focus on our future, and we talked about IPW in 2017, the city has also said we want to partner with you in 2017, so they've already allocated funds from the city to help us to raise the additional dollars to host IPW in 2017. And that's a huge deal to get that type of support from the city council and from our mayor. So just give them a round of applause for understanding the importance of what we do. For us, this additional visibility means that more people are interested in Washington, and they're being more engaged in terms of coming to Washington and staying more than perhaps one night. And also, as we continue to focus on our efforts and the impact of what we're doing, we're looking at the ROI of marketing. Because at the end of the day, the question is, okay, you've done all these fancy ads and videos. What's the return on investment? And right now, as we've done a study with an external source, they've told us that for every dollar we spend, there's a $1.77 return on investment for that marketing dollar, for those marketing dollars. So that means every time we put money in, be it part of the hotel tax that we receive or additional dollars from the Wilson Building, they're seeing a return on investment that assists all of us as Washingtonians for services that are important. So it's important that we continue to focus on the return on investment on all the monies in which we're spending and we're receiving. Our marketing team clearly is very savvy. They did it with $1.4 million for a long period of time. So now with the additional dollars, we're going to be able to leverage and find new ways to engage the global community and bring business to the city. Now, back to the word cool. Cool is something that, again, I said earlier, you can't call yourself cool. It's something that kind of resonates because you either are or you aren't. And if you aren't, hopefully you're not telling someone they're not cool. But it's kind of a feeling that people have when they come to Washington. It's a feeling that you all have as folks that live in the city. Cool is an attitude, and cool is exactly what you're going to see as we continue on our marketing. As you see some of the pieces that are on display now, that's exactly what we try to capture. It's always important that we capture the iconic symbols of the city, the monuments, memorials, and museums, because they're important to us. But I want to make sure that we're focusing on a more warm, personal experience as people are coming to Washington. And that's what you're seeing with the campaign. And we're building momentum around that because it's really important to engage people and see us a little differently than they have. Our advertising throughout the year will continue to highlight both the iconic and unknown sides of Washington that are important to us. And of course, all of this information will continue to be pumped on washington.org simply because we've got tons of people coming to that website to figure out exactly what they should see and do when they come to Washington, D.C. And we want to engage those people. Now, many of you have shared cool ideas with us in the past. I mentioned Dan earlier this morning, and that helps us when we know that you're taking the DC Cool campaign and you're saying, hey, Elliott, in our restaurant, we've got a great new menu, we've got a DC Cool drink, or something of that nature that you're doing on your own to make DC Cool your own. Now, for us, if you're doing it and you're not telling us, we can't share it with folks. But if you're telling us about it, we're able to share that information as to how cool your restaurant is, how cool your hotel is, how cool your transportation service is, and or whatever it is you're doing. And that's important that we know exactly what you're doing. Our goal is to offer unique experiences for people that are looking at coming to Washington. And we can't do that unless you all embrace the campaign. I tell folks all the time, including my great board, there's 850 members times all of your employees, and there's 60 of us. So in order for us to know exactly what you're doing and to get excited about being here today and about the DC Cool campaign, you have to engage us and let us know exactly what you're doing so that we can kind of focus on ways in which we can team up together. For us, the biggest opportunity for us is social media and engagement. And this year, the DC Cool content made a huge difference in terms of the outreach and the positive feedback that we received from the campaign. We love local pride, and we love when people say positive things about our destination. And let me tell you a secret about anyone that lives in a city, and it's not just specific to Washington. Wherever you live, folks that live at home are the worst folks in terms of going out and enjoying the city. Staycations, nobody wants to do that. They want to go somewhere else. So if you ask the person sitting next to you, when's the last time you actually went on the mall and just went to a monument and did a stroll, more than likely they'll say, well, I'm outside of work or outside of something work-related, you'll find out that they probably don't do it a lot. So as we're looking at finding ways to engage and embrace DC Cool, we're encouraging you all to go out and enjoy DC as well and find ways to make it your own campaign and share those ideas with us, because local pride is extremely important as it pertains to our branding. The branding is something we see on a regular basis. You see it in marketing campaigns with major states all over the United States, as well as the Virginia is for Lovers campaign that's been out there for a long time. I know Virginia is for Lovers, and I always joke with my friends there, so what does that mean? But we know that it's effective, as well as some of the other campaigns that are out there on a regular basis. So DC Cool is our Virginia is for Lovers, or I Love New York for now, and we're going to continue to market and capitalize on that. You know, the videos that I referenced earlier, they're going to continue to tell the story, be it from the experience of external people coming into Washington and expanding the mentality of folks that are looking at coming to the city, or maybe perhaps take some of the local folks that are in the city, be it a restaurateur, be it a owner of a personal shop, an artist, and give them a chance to help us tell the story of Washington, D.C. And all this is on, not only on washington.org, but at dccool.com. And here's an example of what I'm referring to.
U Street was a very prominent and important street to the African American community. It was segregated. When you drive up to a business and you see it's busy, then that's where the food's good, especially a restaurant. That's where the food's good. So we opened on August 22nd, 1958. We were readily accepted by the community. After the riots of 1968, when Dr. King was assassinated, the change became drastic. The neighborhood was devastated by what had happened during that time. Well, the new you is really a new you. A month's rent for a two-bedroom apartment is like $4,200. And that's where the drug addicts used to be. It's an amazing thing to me. It really is amazing.
So that's just one of many videos that exist on dccool.com from folks like Virginia Ali, who's, of course, the matriarch of Ben's Chili Bowl, and her son Nizam is on our board and is sitting in the front. Been in existence on U Street for 55 years, and there's nothing more compelling to me than be anywhere in the United States. We were in Australia not long ago, and folks come up to me, and I say to them from Washington, and they say Ben's Chili Bowl. And that tells us that the president going to Ben's Chili Bowl and folks looking at the opportunities to experience Washington, D.C., that makes a difference. So doing the iconic things of Washington are important to folks, but also being able to experience D.C. from a different perspective. So as you see that video, that's one of many. You'll also see a sports video with John Wall and him talking about his experience in Washington, D.C. And it's a pretty interesting interview. Cocktail expert Derek Brown talking about the scene here in Washington, D.C. that's important to folks that as they're looking at ways to experience different drinks in this city. And there's so many more that exist on the website that are there for visitors to see before they come to Washington and for you all to take a look at and enjoy as well. So our goal is to continue to create new branding opportunities for you all to become engaged in, and also for us to make sure that we're focusing on marketing DC from a global perspective. Now, as you take a look at some of the information in your packet, you'll see that clearly, as we talk about conventions, tourism also remains a huge part of what we're focusing on in 2015. We love to know that in 2025 or 2028, we know conventions are coming to the city. But the only way we're going to gain more market share with more tourists coming to the city is to focus on different ways of engaging those folks and making sure that they're coming to Washington. Sports is one of those opportunities because we love to have sporting events in the city. We especially love sporting events whereas people are coming from outside of our neighborhoods and filling hotels, eating in restaurants, using transportation, and then enjoying the sports scene in Washington. And we're going to continue to focus on our efforts to bring more sporting events to the city. You saw Dave Toohey with the Verizon Center sitting in the front row on our board talking about what's happening at the Verizon Center. We're going to focus on more collegiate tournaments, endurance races, alternative sporting events, maybe 2024, the Olympics. We love to have something like that in our backyard, as well as other major opportunities. And we're not driving the ship. We're working closely with Events DC, with Eric Moses, Greg Odell, and their teams in terms of bringing more sporting events to Washington, D.C. And you'll learn more about that as we continue to focus on marketing sporting events to Washington, even if they're not staying in the city. And, you know, as we talk about, you know, Gaylord and all the other locations outside of Washington, it's really encouraging to know that those folks are saying, well, I'm staying here, but I want to come to Washington because I want to do a museum, I want to eat at great restaurants, I want to do a sporting event. And they can only do it in Washington, D.C., and we're going to capitalize on that. We're also going to focus on the LGBT community. We're focusing on it because it's a large community in Washington, and it was recognized as one of the top, D.C. was recognized recently as one of the top LGBT destinations by The Advocate. And the other reason why we're focusing on it is because there's $100 billion spent every year by the LGBT market solely on travel in the United States. And for us, that means we want to leverage our opportunities to invest and bring more LGBT visitors to Washington, D.C. So our interaction with the International Gay, Lesbian, and Travel Association will remain strong in the future. We've been on the board of the organization. As a matter of fact, the executive director used to work at Destination DC, so we're kind of in there with them, and we're going to continue to focus on bringing more of that business to the city. We're going to continue to focus on group tours and finding ways to make sure that they feel comfortable in bringing their buses into Washington, D.C., and I say that with a smile because we know how difficult that can be sometimes. And we love buses. The first time we did our DC Loves Buses activity, the bus driver said, "No, you don't." And so it's really nice 4 years later to go up to a bus and say, "DC loves buses," and they say, "Yes, you do." And so we're making strides in the right direction. Our goal is to make sure that when they're bringing folks to the city, they're staying in the city and they're bringing that revenue, and that revenue is staying in Washington. So our team has been pursuing new opportunities in the Midwest and Canada. As a matter of fact, some of our members are in Canada right now on a mission specifically going after that market. And also the student youth group market is extremely important to us. Their annual convention starts today in Toronto, and we're there because we love the youth coming to the city. Last year, I mentioned 8th graders coming to the city and then eventually growing up and having experiences as coming back to Washington when they have more money. The goal for us is for them to want to come to Washington and stay in our city, which is extremely important. We're helping tour operators create engaging itineraries to remain plugged into what we're focusing on because they're looking at opportunities to bring more and more folks to our city because there is a demand. And of course, the international market remains extremely important to us. We're focusing on more and more ways to bring more international visitors to the city. The numbers recently kind of suggested that there was a slight decrease, and there was a slight dip in terms of international visitation to the United States in certain cities and in Washington, and it was slight. And our goal is to continue to focus ways as to how we can gain more momentum and bring more international visitors to the city. So that means going to Australia, going to New Zealand, as we just recently did, with the state of New York, NYC and Company, the Convention Bureau in New York City, and visit Florida, because we know Australian visitors and New Zealand visitors are going on vacation for 4 weeks, not the 3 to 5 days that we're normally taking, and they're wanting to do more while they're here. So if we can get them to the East Coast, we know that they'll stay longer. They traditionally fly into New York City, and then they're looking at ways in which they can engage while they're in the area, and that's what we're going to focus on. Of course, with international, we can't overlook the fact that China is extremely important to us. It's become one of the #1 markets for us, and because of that, we're continuing to focus more of our efforts in going after that market, and we recently hired a gentleman just to focus on our efforts with the international and in China. And I know the mayor is going to China with the Deputy Mayor of Economic Development, and Teresa Velpulsi from our team will be a part of that group because that market is extremely important for us, and we want to continue to market and capitalize on what's happening with bringing more Chinese visitors to the city. We're really fortunate that Air China just started service to Washington, D.C., so we have Air China flying directly from Beijing as well as United Airlines. I know American Airlines is in the audience, and you can fly all the airlines into Washington, but flying directly from China to Washington, D.C. is extremely important. That's 16,000 additional visitors each year physically coming to Washington, D.C. They're coming to do all the things in which we love about our city, but if you ever go to the outlet malls in the area, you see that they're out there shopping and they're spending a lot of money. So we're focusing on finding more ways to bring that market into the city, and we're working with the Airports Authority because clearly they focus on emerging markets. Emerging markets are untapped for a lot of destinations, and they're important to us, and so we're going to focus on them as well, simply just for that reason. I mentioned Australia, and I mentioned New Zealand recently, and the fact that as we're looking at that market, there's a lot of interest in Washington, D.C., even though there are no direct flights from either city to Washington, D.C., but we're working on that as well. And then, of course, Capital Region USA, that's our regional effort to bring more international visitation to the city. That's Maryland, D.C., Virginia, and the Airports Authority, and finding more and more ways to capitalize on international visitation or overseas visitation into the U.S. We count Canada as international, but because you can drive in from Canada, it's not counted as overseas, and Canada does remain our top market, but we're finding ways to get additional visitation into our city, which is important for us. There are more and more domestic flights being added to Dulles and to Reagan National, and we're capitalizing on the fact that MWA is bringing new service to the airports from destinations that, quite frankly, have not flown directly into Washington, D.C. in the past. And for us, that means opportunities domestically to bring more visitation to the city, because domestic tourism still remains the strongest segment of what we go after. It's just the international market tends to spend more, so you see where we're going in terms of our efforts there. And then, of course, convention sales and services. We can't be successful without making sure we're filling the convention center, filling your individual properties. We know that conventioneers tend to spend more because they're spending someone else's money, and we want to capitalize on that opportunity and bring more and more of that business to the city. 2014 was a really big year for us, not only with conventions, but also with infrastructure, with the new Hilton Garden Inn, Cambria Suites, and the Hyatt Place that just recently opened. We talked about the Marriott Marquis that we're in today, and this has been a game changer for us as we go after business, not only because of booking individual business in the hotel, but also the connectivity to the convention center, which has been extremely important to us as we go after business. Groups have been telling us for a long time, we want to come to Washington, we love your inventory, but if you had something that was connected, that was right next door to the convention center, we would book D.C. And that's been happening as we've been able to capitalize on the fact that the hotel opened in May of this year. So we're finding ways to bring more business into the city and market our city to those groups that perhaps may not have considered us in the past. But not only the convention center, the Connecticut Avenue collection remains a big deal to us as we look at some of the big box hotels further north of the city, but in Washington, D.C. and easily accessible by Metro. And we're devising a plan with the Connecticut Avenue collection to focus on marketing mini-wides specifically to that area, that perhaps they're too small for a convention center, or maybe we have a group in the convention center as well as in the Connecticut Avenue collection and just kind of maximize the city and create compression for outer areas. So as you can see, leveraging the assets that we have in Washington are extremely important, and that's what the sales team is doing. They're creating new opportunities to book new business, such as some of the ones that you see listed on the screen. These are groups that said to us they wouldn't come to Washington unless we had a large hotel, as well as some of the short-term bookings that have happened in the city recently. And then, of course, if we could have every July and August, like the July and August of this year, life would be great. As a matter of fact, my phone rang just a little bit from people saying we're not having a good year, just a little bit. So that means when you have Microsoft in July, the Pokemon convention, which was in the city, a really interesting group of people in Washington this weekend, lots of fun. American Psychological Association, what would have happened if they met over each other? I wonder. Nike Championship, City Open, and other events that are happening in the city, including Jehovah's Witnesses that did not physically meet in Washington, but it had 60,000 people that filled up Washington the first week in August. So, and that was just booked last year. So if we can have that happen every year, I know you guys would be very happy, and we're continuing to focus our efforts on bringing more and more of that business, the short-term business, to the city. International efforts from a convention perspective. Events DC and Destination DC work hand in hand to bring more international convention business to the city. We'd love to have the International AIDS Society come back here like they did in July of 2012. We probably won't see them come back for another 20 years, but we've been successful in bringing other meetings to the city like Splunk. It's a technology group. It's an interesting name, but as long as they come and they spend millions of dollars, I'm happy with them. International Association of Dental Research. The International and the American Association meeting here in 2020, as well as other groups that our team is working on to bring to the city. So we're really excited about how we're engaging our hotels and bringing convention business to the city. So one of the strongest marketing points that we have as a destination is the fact that we're considered affordable. And as folks go to our website, washington.org, the most popular place on our website is the 100 free things to see and do in Washington. And we continue to capitalize on that, whether it be from the standpoint of bringing a group to the city and say that you're paying for a hotel, but you've got all these things that you can do in the city that are free, or the leisure traveler that's coming to Washington and we say that we're a value-added destination. But on the flip side of that, we're continuously focusing on the other travelers that are saying to us, we want to come to Washington, we want VIP experiences. And a few years ago, we put together a piece called Lux DC that was specific to those that are looking for a VIP experience. And Lux DC is reemerging in 2015, and we're focusing on the demand that's out there for those visitors that, quite frankly, have a lot of cash to spend, and they don't want to stand in line, and they want to have a VIP experience when they come to the city. So our collaboration with some of the key hotels and the experiences in which we're putting together in the city will help us to go after that market. And we're going to put together a collateral piece specifically in place to go after this market so that they'll know exactly how they can navigate through the city. And we'll have a microsite in place specifically to the market as well. And we're focusing our efforts on Lux DC with a lot of the travel agents globally so that they can basically sell these VIP experiences. Even if it's a sporting event in the city and they're saying, we want a luxury box just for a few people, we want to make sure that they have access to that. Very important to us. Highlighting VIP experiences is a huge part of Lux DC. As we look at the market, here's what we found out. By 2020, the number of families or millionaires in the city will nearly double. And that's just in the United States. So when you look at it from a global perspective, and we know countries like the UAE, and we've spent a lot of time there recently, and other countries like China, you have more and more people going into just accumulating wealth. And they want a VIP experience, and we want to make sure we can bring it to them. So that's what the Lux DC piece will look like for 2015, an opportunity to bring more of that business to the city. And then, of course, IPW, U.S. Travel, which is headquartered just a few blocks away. We are fortunate to host it in 2017. You heard us talk about it, I believe, last year. You'll probably hear me talk about it next year, and probably the next year after that, because it's a big deal for the city. 6,000 people coming into Washington in July of 2017 from over 70 countries representing and here for 3 days, just simply here to do business. For us, it's the best opportunity for us to interface with the international market and to showcase our city. Now, Chicago hosted the meeting this year, and we were there. The economic impact just of the meeting is about $12 million, and we'll realize that plus in 2017, because Roger Dow, the CEO of U.S. Travel, says that when D.C. was announced, the room kind of just applauded. It was pandemonium in terms of coming to Washington. And I think Gregory McCarthy, my former chairman, who's in the audience, was there with me when that happened in Vegas, and so we're really excited about hosting this. The big deal for us, beyond that, what's happening in Chicago, is that they're going to experience $950 million of new bookings because they hosted IPW in 2014, and they'll also see about 1 million additional international visitors, which is what we want. So you're going to hear a lot about IPW and our efforts, and again, as I mentioned earlier, the collaboration with the city and our mayor in terms of getting us the additional funding so that we can look good and make sure that these folks have a good experience in the city has been extremely important. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. I see him in the audience. Thank you very much for your support with that. Now, everything we're focusing on is for 2015 and beyond, and that means different things to different people. If I talk to the convention center or maybe the Marriott Marquis, I can call them and say, we got good news. We just heard a group just booked D.C. for 2028, and they're excited about it. And if I say that to a restaurateur, good news, we just booked a group for 2028. They're like, what? What's happening tomorrow? So clearly, we're focusing on long-term business and short-term business, and there are a lot of opportunities for both, and that's what we're going to focus on. We can't do it without you all. I mentioned that earlier. Membership has its privileges, and one of those privileges is access to Destination DC, to me and all of our members. Membership is important to you all. I hope that's why you're paying those dues. But for us, it means we need to collaborate with you. We can't make the fish jump in your boat. That doesn't happen at all. I hate when someone calls and says, I joined Destination DC 6 months ago and my phone hasn't rung. I'm like, well, it probably won't if that's what you're expecting. You've got to do your part. You've got to remain engaged. You have to be on the extranet. You have to log in, see exactly what we're focusing on. You have to host events that our team puts on, Bruce Gutenberg and our memberships and partnerships team on a regular basis. I love when I hear customers or members come to our events and say, hey, I booked a piece of business, so I had a great opportunity simply because I met them at a power hour that was hosted by Destination DC. There are a lot of events in which we're doing. There are co-op opportunities for those of you who want to travel with us. It's not as glamorous as it sounds when I say I was in Australia and New Zealand. I didn't mention that there was a 16-hour time difference and I was there for 6 days. So it was a lot of movement, but there's a great return on investment. And I love when those that were with us said that we came back and we booked business because of that. And those who don't go say, well, hey, how come they're doing? Well, that's because they're there. And I have a great story about one member that went with us last year to Europe and to China. And I'm always thinking when I see the list of folks that are traveling with us, gee, I hope they get an ROI in terms of being here. And the feedback and the response they received, especially when we went into China, from the Chinese travel agents was overwhelming in terms of their interest in that particular destination. And they would have never thought about it if that particular destination didn't co-op and go on that trip with us. So there is value associated with traveling with us and going after the market. And here's a little secret. I can never say that the Marriott Marquis is the best hotel in Washington, D.C. Now, granted, it's a great hotel in the city, but if you're there with us, you can talk about your property one-on-one with the customer, and then you have direct access to that individual customer, and then suddenly fish do start jumping in your boat because these folks are now talking about your individual property. So it's important that you all engage us, share your ideas with us, let us know exactly, maybe there's some things that we haven't thought of that you thought of that we should be doing because we love to focus on ways in which we can kind of improve upon our marketing and our messaging. Miles Media for us, They do all of our printed guides, and those printed guides are the visitor's guide and the event planning guide. They're in the audience today, and if you're not involved or engaged with Miles in terms of what your listing looks like, then you should be. The ads that are in our visitor's guide, we're the official visitor's guide for the city, and it has a lot of traction throughout, not only in Washington, but as we're traveling in terms of people wanting to do business. So I encourage you to focus on ways in which you can engage in some of that literature. And of course, you've got to talk to us, because if we don't hear from you and if we don't know exactly what's important to you, then we don't know how to improve upon what we do to meet your needs, which is important to us. In your bag, at your chair, there was a Marketing Outlook meeting piece that looked like this. You don't have to pull it out right now, but when you do, it has a lot of great information about what we're doing in each department that I would love for you to take a look at and share it with your team, if you're part of an ownership group, share it with them. If you have questions, reach out to us, because what we've tried to do is give you a snapshot of some of the key things in which we're focusing on in terms of our marketing physically in this room, but everything else exists on the extranet. So you need to go to the extranet to find out exactly what's happening in the city and how to focus on getting engaged in Destination DC. Now, we're very fortunate to have a lot of support, not only from our 40-plus board of directors at Destination DC, but also the board of directors from Events DC and a lot of other stakeholders in the city. But clearly, there's no more important person to focus on our efforts than our own mayor. And I'm happy to have our mayor here in the audience with us today. He's been, quite frankly, in lockstep with us, with everything that we've done, very supportive of getting us additional dollars to market the city. He knows that in the 5-year strategic plan that was put together by the Economic Development Department, that this industry creates the largest number of jobs and has the largest impact, or will have a significant impact in the future. So we thank the mayor for all of his efforts to bring business to the city, and in a couple minutes I'm going to welcome him to the stage. But I'm going to introduce all the other speakers at the same time. I know that Mike Dickens, the chairman of our board, is also in the audience, and Mike is going to come up and kind of talk to you about what's happening from the standpoint of our board of directors. Mike is not new to the industry. He's been around for a few years. I'll let him tell you how many exactly. And he played a huge role, as well as other people in the audience, in making sure that the Convention Center was built, as he's the former chair of the Convention Center Authority in the past. So as I sit down and take my seat, I'd like to first welcome our wonderful mayor to the stage, followed by Mike Dickens. Give them both a huge round of applause.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I want to welcome you also to Destination DC's Marketing Outlook meeting. I want to start by extending the heartiest and warmest congratulations I possibly can to Elliott Ferguson. I was just saying to his wife, he has done an incredible job with this organization. Come on, guys, give it up. You know, it's wonderful to be able to meet with him, to meet with Greg Odell and others who are part of the hospitality, tourism industry in the District of Columbia, and to see the synergy that exists between them. They are great, faces, spokespersons, marketers of the city. And frankly, ladies and gentlemen, I think we have a great product in the District of Columbia. We are growing, and many of you know this, we're growing at the rate of 1,200 people a month, and we just did the math again recently. That would put us at probably the largest population we've had since the 1970s in the District of Columbia, 660,000 people who now live in the District of Columbia. And Elliott is absolutely right about us being a great sports venue. How about our Nationals, ladies and gentlemen? How you like that? And Gregory, I know you've already thought about this, but imagine the possibility of a World Series between the Washington Nationals and the folks right up the road, the Baltimore Orioles. I'm thinking about the great competition, but I got to tell you, the mercenary that I am, I'm thinking about the dollars that would come into the city as well. That would be a fantastic situation. As a matter of fact, when I looked yesterday, I don't know what they are today, but the O's were up by 8.5 games in their division. And assuming that they will win the division and we will win the division, I will be rooting for both of them to be able to win, so that all that business will be brought to the two cities. We're going to try to change the World Series. It'll be a 7-game series. There will be 6 games in the District of Columbia and 1 game in Baltimore. And that'll be a day game so folks can come back to D.C. At night. You know, the audiences, the markets that Elliott spoke to are absolutely fantastic, and I'm really glad that we are recognizing the importance of our LGBT community. This is one of the most LGBT-friendly cities in the nation, in the world, ladies and gentlemen. You know, the policies that we have here are truly forward-thinking. We adopted marriage equality in the District of Columbia back in December of 2009, and this will be the 5th anniversary of having marriage equality here in the District of Columbia. I don't know whether you all know this or not, but the mayor now gets to perform marriages in the District of Columbia. I've told people I've done 7 marriages already, and 3 or 4 of them have been same-sex marriages. In fact, I did a heterosexual marriage this morning. I did tell people I do not do divorces, ladies and gentlemen. If you want a divorce, you go somewhere else, but do not come to the Wilson Building. But imagine the marketing potential of that, ladies and gentlemen. Imagine, you know, I think about Las Vegas. We could become the Las Vegas of the East. We could open a chapel on every block, you know, bring people to the District of Columbia. They can stay in our hotels. We'll make sure they get married, and maybe they even will stay and move to the District of Columbia. We got to keep marketing and try that one out, Elliott. I think we'll be able to get it done. You know, I think we had somewhere last year around, I don't know, 19 million. Maybe it's a little inflated, but around 19 million people who came to visit the District of Columbia. And tourism continues to be our number 2. How are you, Chairman? I didn't see you sitting over there. Forgive me for not acknowledging you. Tourism continues to be the number 2 highest, you know, area of our economy in the District of Columbia. The federal government being number 1, and I guess it probably will continue to be number 1, although I think that gap is closing. And by the way, for those of you who were concerned about the news that the FBI location has now been narrowed to 3 places, I think 2 in Maryland and 1 in Virginia, I couldn't care less. As a matter of fact, I'm rooting for them to get the heck quick off of Pennsylvania Avenue. Can you imagine what the development potential is for that site down there at 9th and 10th and Pennsylvania Avenue? We got the Trump Hotel coming. We got now this hotel right here. The potential for that site is absolutely enormous. We don't get any property taxes now. We don't get hardly any sales taxes, and most of the people who work in that building don't live in the District of Columbia. So what is the value to us of having that site? I actually think the greatest potential is for them to move and move as quickly as they possibly can. For those who don't know, we actually withdrew from the competition. We had advanced Poplar Point as a site, as a possibility, and they came back and said to us, GSA came back and said, well, if you can give us the entirety of Poplar Point, we will continue to consider you. And that gave us the absolute exit point that we needed. And so we exited the competition at that stage. And so good luck to the FBI somewhere in the metropolitan Washington area as we develop 9th and Pennsylvania Avenue to the revenue and the tourism and development potential of the District of Columbia. Kathy, can you imagine how many restaurants we can put on that site? And that too is a big part of our growing economy in this city. You know, we're developing a real transit infrastructure here in the city. We will have streetcar. We will have one line, Phil, that will open in this year. Hopefully, in our lifetime, there will be another one. If you're interested in streetcars, lobby him because we did our best to try to make that happen. But that'll be yet another, I think, part of the transit infrastructure in the District of Columbia. We're adding, I guess we won't brag about buses, do we? But we are adding more circulators, more bridges, and more bicycles. Our bike share program now has well north of 20,000 people. And we have added more miles of bike lanes. We have a commitment to 100 miles of bike lanes, and we are now at north of 60 miles of bike lanes. Whatever it takes to get you to the District of Columbia, if you need more bike lanes, we will get more bike lanes for you so you will come and hopefully stay in our great city. Last thing I'll mention is that I'm delighted, too, with what we've been able to do with the development of our international relations. And China is, Elliott, certainly a great example of that. I will be going to China for the second time next month, and we're looking forward to bringing back more opportunities. We now have an office in China, in Shanghai, which is fully staffed. It's a 24/7 operation. And next month, when I go to China, we will be opening our second office in China. This one will be open in Beijing, and it will be fully staffed as well as we work to try to bring more business. Yes, we were delighted to be able to work with MWA and others to be able to have a direct line now, a direct flight from China, from Beijing to, I won't say the District of Columbia, because Dulles Airport is not in the District of Columbia, is it? But it is a District of Columbia airport. Anything that serves the District of Columbia, we will claim it. I've tried to get Prince George's County to understand that they would be a lot more development friendly if they just simply became Ward 9 of the District of Columbia. I think people would absolutely love that. So we have a program, too, that we've been working hard on, and that is the EB-5 program. Some of you undoubtedly are familiar with that. It's a foreign direct investment program. You know, simply put, if you're willing to invest a minimum of $500,000 and can guarantee 10 jobs, you will get a visa to the U.S. We now have, through the EB-5 program alone in the District of Columbia, about $250 million that has been invested, and we think we'll bring back more. The market at O Street has $90 million of that investment. Skyland on the outer perimeter of the city is about $40 million, and there are more around the city as well. So, you know, as we celebrate the Trump and we celebrate all the restaurants, we've, I think, opened 100 restaurants or so in the last year, 15 of which are in Shaw. I want to celebrate this great hotel also. I know the amenities here are absolutely fantastic, and I know it's good to be able to brand it as the new Marriott Marquis, but as somebody who grew up in this city, I have come in this hotel, ladies and gentlemen, simply to get a Mighty Mo, an orange freeze, and a hot fudge cake. And if you haven't tried it, you need to try it because it is a fantastic throwback. It is very tastefully done. And Dan, I want to thank you for the hospitality you have demonstrated in now being our convention headquarters hotel. And there will be more. City Center will be the host to a new Conrad Hotel. The state of Qatar will add $300 million investment to the city, $1 billion but from that one nation. Ladies and gentlemen, if I sound excited about the District of Columbia, it is because I am. We got it going on. Forbes magazine just named us to be the coolest city in America. The American Sports Medicine College named us the fittest city. And you know what? We're going to keep doing it. Whatever they are, anybody that's number one, we're coming for you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Kind of wish that we can get our mayor a little more enthused about Washington, D.C. It's kind of hard to see his enthusiasm. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm changing the order slightly because we're running a little behind on time, and I wanted to introduce a couple of our other elected officials that are extremely important and instrumental in Destination D.C. and Events D.C. being able to do what we do in Marketing D.C. Of course, that's Council Chair Phil Mendelson and Councilmember Jack Evans. Now, both of these gentlemen have done a yeoman's job in terms of not only focusing on our efforts to bring more visitation to the city, but equally as important to see the fact that what we do is really economic development. It is perceived as a lot of fun because it is, but at the end of the day, it's creating jobs and bringing more folks to the city and a larger amount of economic development. So in that order, and I'm sorry because I didn't see you all sitting over there, I would ask Council Chair Phil Mendelson to please take the stage, followed by Councilmember Jack Evans. And thank you very much.
I don't know about the music. Good afternoon. Again, I'm Phil Mendelson, Chairman of the Council of the District of Columbia. In a minute, I'll be joined by my colleague, Jack Evans, who chairs the Council's Committee on Finance and Revenue and oversees the issues that we're talking about today. I'm here, along with the mayor and with Jack, to make a political point. And that political point is that the political branches of the government support what you all are doing, support what Destination DC is doing, and recognize that the work that you're doing is important to the vitality and the future of this city. I want to first thank Elliott Ferguson and his team, everybody at Destination DC, for the great work that they are doing. I want to say very briefly what we in the government, the council, and the mayor have done over the last several years is to add dollars to the budget for Destination DC. We added about $3 million a couple of years ago. The mayor sustained that in his budget proposals over the last couple of years. We added another $1 million for the fiscal year that begins in October. So that over the last several years, between the mayor and the council, we have grown the budget for Destination DC in terms of the government's contribution by about $4 million. I think that's pretty good. I think that's pretty good, but it's not good enough. I know that if you compare Washington, D.C. and the government's commitment to organizations like Destination DC, compare us with other cities invest far more dollars than we do. And so we need to increase the number of dollars. And that's part of the message that I want to give, and I'm sure that Jack will echo this as well, that we want to increase the number of dollars that we make available. And I also want to note, some of you are aware of the fact that there's some litigation in pending. I think it's up in the Court of Appeals. It has to do with online hotel reservations. We've won at initial levels. We think in the end that the city is going to receive a substantial settlement from that. And of that, we have already set aside a total of about $5 million for Destination DC. It's $1.5 million next year if the settlement comes in, and another $3.5 million, which is intended to be matching dollars for the 2017 IPW convention, the one that Elliott was talking about, that really ought to be good, not just in the immediate moment, but as well as attracting over time a lot of tourism and convention activity. The mayor touched on this. We feel really good about the city. We are a great city. The mayor touched on some of the ways that we're doing well. I'll add a few others. You know, over the last week, I've sat down and met with the police chief. We have a police chief who's recognized as a national leader in law enforcement. I met for a couple hours with our school chancellor. We have a chancellor of our public education, our public school system, who's recognized as a national leader. We really are doing some good stuff in this city. The mayor touched on some of the stuff we're doing with transportation. He mentioned streetcars. I'm glad that we were able to support some of the funding for streetcars. But, you know, we're a leader in terms of bike share. We have a nationally recognized public transit system with Metro. What we're doing in terms of transportation is something that other jurisdictions are jealous to see. In terms of theater and nightlife, we have a very vibrant nightlife, and I think, and many of you know this, that outside of New York City and possibly Los Angeles, we have arguably the best theater in the country. And so that's why we think that what you're doing is so important, because we want to attract visitors not only to take advantage of these things, but to see how good the city is doing and then return. And that's good for business, not just for your business, but all kinds of business in the district. So my message is very simple. The council, the legislative branch, the executive branch with the mayor, we support what Destination is doing and what everyone in this room is doing, which is promoting the city. Thank you very much.
And thank you for that wonderful introduction, Phil. I was really appreciating those of you who don't know, I'm Jack Evans. And I represent Ward 2 on the Council of the District of Columbia. Welcome to Ward 2. Thank you for being here. Let me begin by recognizing and thanking Elliott Ferguson and his team. I don't think we can give Elliott enough rounds of applause for all he has done for our city. Elliott, thank you again. Give him a big round of applause. And everyone who works with Elliott tirelessly to promote our city. And also I want to recognize the chairman of the board, Mike Dickens. And I want to give Mike, he's going to be speaking next, but I want to give Mike a big round of applause. Mike goes back with me 20 years in trying to create a District of Columbia, a convention center, a hotel. And I remember, Mike, when we were trying to build a convention center, it was taking so long that I said to him one day, if you and I go out and put a brick down every day, we'll build that center faster than the city. But we did get it built. But give Mike a big round of applause. He'll be speaking soon. And thanks for being there. The chairman of the council, Phil Mendelson, Phil and I go back a long way. We were ANC commissioners together in the 1980s and have really seen a city change and grow. And Phil is now the chairman. He's doing a very good job leading our city. So give Phil a big round of applause. Thank you, Phil, for all that you've contributed. And my good friend, my longtime good friend, someone who has done a fabulous job in leading our city, and that's Mayor Gray. Mayor Gray and I go back a long time together. When I was a newly minted council member back in '91, he was a director, the new director of the Human Services cluster in the Kelly administration. And we worked together, first project in finding places for people to live. We had a number of homeless trailers and decrepit hotels, and we were able together to find decent housing. This is how long and far our commitment goes in finding affordable places for people to live in our city. When he became chairman of the council, I was vice chair. We worked together on a number of projects. And when he became mayor, again, we worked together on a number of projects. The most important be the finances of our city. And I can't understate that. In 1991 through 1998, our city went through a calamity, almost akin to where Detroit is today. But through the hard work of a lot of people, and I want to mention Mayor Williams, I don't know if he's here, Chairman Linda Kropp, give them a big round of applause for all the work that they did in the past. And Mayor Gray and myself and Chairman Mendelson and a number of other people who worked very hard to create today the city, Washington, D.C., with the strongest financial position of any city, county, or state in America. And that deserves a whole lot of applause. And so I want to thank the contributions made by our mayor, Mayor Gray, in a whole host of areas across this city. So please give him a big round of applause. Mayor Gray, thank you for all that you have done. And I want to recognize the manager of this hotel, Dan Nadeau. Give Dan another big round of applause. Dan, I got to tell you, every time I walk in here, and people walk up, they're friendly, they greet you. This has to be the friendliest, most convenient hotel to get around. And I really appreciate everything you have done to make this such a welcoming place. Give Dan another round of applause. Thank you for what you've done. Just a couple points I want to make. I just read this joke in the paper. I'll say it. It's about Henry VIII, what he used to say to his wives. I won't keep you very long, so I will be quickly moving along here. We are a city that has really made enormous progress. We have the finances, as I mentioned, among the best in the world. Development all across our city, the envy of cities around the world. And we have addressed many of the problems that other cities still struggle with, increasing our education, improving our homes and affordability for our residents. And it can go on and on and that. And it took a lot of hard work to get there. And sometimes I reflect upon the past as to where the future is headed. This was a long, hard struggle to get here. I remember when we first proposed building the Verizon Center and the opposition. Do many people remember the Verizon Center was an 8-5 vote on the city council, but I can't find any of those 5 who voted against it today. It went on to be a tremendous success. This convention center next door was an enormous controversy. I used to have this woman follow me around in a white elephant costume everywhere I went for 2 years. That's a true story, heckling me from the audience. But we built it. And it went on to be an enormous success. The hotel we're standing in today took almost 10 years to build. but we managed to get there. And as the mayor mentioned, where would we be today had we not built the baseball stadium? The most controversial project that I have ever dealt with, a 7-6 vote on the council 12 times. But we got it done, and we are today, as the mayor mentioned, on the cusp of becoming, with our baseball team, America's team. The team that everyone across the country has rooted for. And I don't know if anybody's been watching the games the last 4 nights. We had 4 walk-off wins. Unbelievable. Give that team a big round of applause. And so these are all the things that make our city great, and all the things that attract people to our city as we grow, as over 20 million tourists a year come to Washington, spending their money and celebrating all that we have done to create this. And lastly, I want to thank all of you in the audience, because without you, we could not have gotten this done. You invested in our city. You believed in our city. You made our city what it is today. So on behalf of the D.C. government, on behalf of myself on the council, we are committed to working with all of you to continue to make Washington, D.C. what I view as the most dynamic city in the world. You know, I appreciate one thing. My entire life, I don't think anybody said I was cool. But I have to say, I am now part of an organization, and we are cool. So thank you all. God bless and have a wonderful day. And with that, let me introduce the chairman of the board, Mike Dickens.
I've been told that my 3 minutes is now 90 seconds because we're running late. I was going to tell this story about how I love salespeople. I want you to know that I've been in the hotel business for 42 years. I have a tattoo on my arm that says "Born to Raise Rates." But I'm just going to say this. Salespeople, I love salespeople. All of you folks out there that go out and make sales calls and bring business to your hotel, your restaurant, your city, you're doing God's work. Because it's your efforts that bring the revenue to the city that gives people a chance to have good jobs, raise families, live in good places, and you should never forget that. That is your highest purpose, is to create jobs, good jobs for the citizens of the city. So salespeople, give yourselves a hand. And I'd like to thank Elliott Ferguson and his team and Greg Odell and their team at DC Events. I did spend 11.5 years and 8,600 hours volunteer working at the convention center. And it always has a special place in my heart. I think it's one of the finest buildings, not just convention centers, but one of the finest buildings built in this country in the last 100 years. So with that, I'm going to retire from the stage in less than 3 minutes. Thank you very much for coming.